They handed you a version of yourself before you could even speak. Before you had a single thought of your own, they had already decided who you'd be, and you've been performing that role ever since. Think about it. The moment you were born, you were already being shaped. A name you didn't choose, a religion you didn't choose, a set of shoulds whispered into you before your mind was even capable of resistance. Be polite, be quiet, be good, don't ask too many questions, don't want too much. Fit in, blend in, disappear into the crowd, and call that disappearing humility. By the time you were old enough to think for yourself, the thinking had already been done for you. Your fears aren't even your own, they were installed. Your ambitions were shrunk to a size that made everyone around you comfortable. Somewhere in you there's a person who wanted to be reckless, loud, brilliant, dangerous. And somewhere along the way, that person got buried under a mountain of other people's expectations, and you were handed a mask instead and told, wear this, it's easier. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. You got good at wearing it, so good that you forgot it was a mask at all. You call it your personality, you call it who you are. But strip away the approval-seeking, strip away the fear of judgment, strip away every opinion you inherited instead of earned, and what's left? Most people never find out, because looking would mean admitting how much of their life has been borrowed. This is the first war you have to win before any other transformation matters. The war against the self they built for you. Not the family that raised you, not the culture that shaped you, but the invisible architecture of expectation that decided, long before you had a say, what kind of person was acceptable to become. Every time you flinch before speaking your real opinion, that's the mask talking. Every time you shrink your ambition so no one feels threatened, that's the mask talking. Every time you say that's just who I am about a trait you actually resent, that's not truth, that's inheritance. Real self-discovery doesn't begin with meditation retreats or affirmations. It begins with a brutal, uncomfortable audit. Which of my beliefs are actually mine, and which ones did I simply never think to question? Which of my fears protect me, and which ones were only ever there to keep me small, obedient, and safe for other people's comfort? You don't need to become someone new. You need to stop being who they built. You did not arrive on this earth with a script in your hand. There was no note waiting for you, no destiny etched into your bones, no cosmic assignment whispered into your ear the moment you took your first breath. You simply appeared, thrown into a body, a family, a language, a century you never asked for, and only after that collision with existence were you expected to figure out what any of it meant. That order matters more than almost anything else you'll ever understand about yourself. You did not exist first as an idea and then get poured into a life. You existed first, empty and undefined, and the meaning was supposed to come after, built by you, not given to you. This is the part that terrifies people, so they run from it their whole lives. They want to believe there's a purpose sitting somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered like buried treasure, some hidden calling that will finally explain why they exist. So they wait. They search external things, a career title, a relationship, a religion, a role, hoping one of them will finally hand over the meaning they were never given at birth. And when nothing does, when the promotion doesn't fill the emptiness, and the relationship doesn't answer the question, they don't confront the truth. They just search harder, convinced the answer is still out there somewhere, in the next achievement, the next identity, the next thing to consume. But here is the truth nobody hands you gently. There is no treasure buried anywhere. There is no script. There is no purpose sitting in a vault waiting for the right person to unlock it. You are not a product rolling off an assembly line with a function already stamped into your design. You are raw material, nothing more, nothing less, and what you become is entirely, terrifyingly, exhilaratingly up to you. This should not depress you. This should wake you up, because if meaning isn't discovered, it means it can't be taken from you either. No failure erases it, because nothing was guaranteed to begin with. No one else can steal your purpose, because no one else was ever holding it. The responsibility is entirely yours, which means so is the authorship. Every choice you make from this point forward isn't just an action, it's a brushstroke on a canvas that started completely blank. You are not uncovering a statue that was always inside the marble. You are the sculptor, the marble and the hands, all at once. And there was never a hidden shape waiting inside. Only the shape you choose to carve. Most people can't handle this kind of freedom, so they hand it away. They let a religion define their purpose, let a career define their worth, let a culture define their values, because being told who to be is so much lighter than deciding for yourself. It's easier to inherit a meaning than to build one. It's easier to be assigned a role than to write it from nothing. But everything easy comes at a cost, and the cost here is your entire existence, spent playing a character someone else invented, in a story you never actually chose to be in. So if you're waiting for a sign, a calling, a moment where the universe finally reveals why you're here, stop waiting. It's not coming, because it was never going to come. The emptiness you feel isn't a malfunction. It's an invitation. It is the blank page, not a wound. What you build on that page, choice by choice, day by day, uncomfortable decision by uncomfortable decision, that becomes your meaning, not found, not given, made. You were never missing a purpose. You were only ever missing the courage to make one. There is a version of you that only exists on the other side of pain you haven't been willing to walk through yet. You will never meet that person by avoiding discomfort. You will never meet that person by choosing the easy option, the safe option, the option that lets you sleep peacefully at night without ever being tested. That version of you is waiting, patiently, indifferently, on the other side of every hardship you've spent your whole life trying to dodge. And the tragedy is that most people die without ever making the crossing. Think about what pain actually does, stripped of all the sympathy and softness we wrap around it. Pain interrupts you. It stops the momentum of a life running on autopilot and forces a question that comfort never asks. Who are you really when things stop being easy? Comfort lets you keep pretending. Comfort lets you keep wearing the mask, keep repeating the same safe patterns, keep mistaking routine for identity. But pain, real pain, the kind that strips away distraction, doesn't let you hide. It drags you, whether you're ready or not, straight into confrontation with what's actually inside you. And here is the part almost no one wants to hear. That confrontation is not the enemy. It is the beginning of the only kind of growth that actually means anything. A person who has never been tested has no idea what they're made of. They have opinions about their own strength, their own values, their own limits. But opinions are cheap, untested, theoretical. It is only in suffering, in loss, in failure, in the moments where everything comfortable gets stripped away, that a person finds out what's actually true about themselves versus what they only assumed was true. You don't discover your resilience by reading about it. You discover it in the exact moment resilience is the only thing left. This is why the people who seem to radiate a kind of unshakable depth, the ones who speak slower, who aren't rattled by small things, who seem to carry a quiet strength that can't be faked, almost always have a wound somewhere behind that calm. Not because suffering is glamorous. It isn't. But because they walked through something that could have broken them, and instead of turning away from what it revealed, they let it rebuild them. Pain became material. Pain became structure. What was once a wound became the very foundation the rest of their identity was built on top of. Compare that to a life spent avoiding all discomfort, a life engineered around comfort, ease, the path of least resistance. That life might look peaceful from the outside, but peace built on avoidance is fragile because it's never been tested. The moment real hardship arrives, and it always does, eventually uninvited, a person who has spent their whole life avoiding pain has no foundation to stand on. They break, not because they're weak, but because they never gave themselves the chance to find out they were strong. So stop treating suffering as something to escape as fast as possible. Stop numbing it, avoiding it, medicating it into silence before you've even asked what it's trying to show you. The hardest seasons of your life are not detours from your becoming, they are the becoming. Every version of yourself worth respecting was built in a moment you wanted to quit and didn't. The self you're looking for isn't hiding somewhere comfortable. It's standing on the other side of the very thing you've been running from. There is a version of you that only exists when no one else is watching. Not the version you present at dinner tables, not the version you perform in meetings, not the version calibrated for likes, approval, or applause, but the one underneath all of that, the one who has been waiting patiently for a moment of true solitude to finally speak. Most people go their entire lives without ever hearing from that version, because they are never, not even once, truly alone with themselves. Notice how much of your day is spent performing. Not lying, necessarily, just adjusting. Softening an opinion because the room might not receive it well. Laughing a little louder because the group is laughing. Choosing the safer answer because the bolder one might draw a look you don't want to deal with. None of these moments feel like betrayal in isolation. They feel like manners, like social intelligence, like just getting along. But stack thousands of these small adjustments on top of each other, day after day, year after year, and you get a person who has been so thoroughly shaped by an audience that they've forgotten what their own voice sounds like without one. This is the quiet danger of the crowd. Not that it's cruel, but that it's persuasive. It doesn't force you to conform. It simply rewards you when you do, and slowly withdraws its warmth when you don't. And humans, being what they are, will trade authenticity for belonging almost every single time, because belonging feels like safety and authenticity, at first, feels like risk. So the real self gets quietly negotiated away, one small compromise at a time, until the person staring back in the mirror is more of a composite of everyone else's expectations than an actual individual. Here's the uncomfortable truth. As long as you need the crowd's approval to feel secure in who you are, you don't actually know who you are. You know who you are in relation to them. That's not identity, that's reflection. A mirror doesn't have a self. It only shows you whatever is standing in front of it. And a person who only exists in reaction to an audience is doing the exact same thing, bending, adjusting, reshaping, depending entirely on who's in the room. Solitude is where that stops, not loneliness. Loneliness is the ache of wanting an audience that isn't there. Solitude is something else entirely. The deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable choice to sit with yourself without performing for anyone, without adjusting your opinions for comfort, without softening your ambitions so nobody feels threatened. It's in that silence, stripped of applause and judgment alike, that a person finally hears their own thoughts clearly enough to tell the difference between what they actually believe and what they were simply trained to say. This is why so many of the most original minds in history spent enormous amounts of time alone, not because they hated people, but because they understood that the self cannot be built in a room full of mirrors. It has to be built somewhere quiet, somewhere honest, somewhere the crowd's voice finally goes silent long enough for your own to be heard. So ask yourself, honestly, when was the last time you made a real decision? Not a comfortable one, not a popular one, but a true one, without checking how it would look to everyone else first. If you can't remember, that's not a small gap. That's the whole problem. The crowd will never hand you your identity. It only ever hands you a costume. Every single day, without exception, you are forced to choose. Not sometimes, not on the big occasions like weddings or career changes. Every day, in 100 small decisions, you are handed the terrifying responsibility of deciding who you're going to be. And here's the part most people never admit to themselves. You didn't ask for this. No one consulted you before dropping you into a life where freedom isn't a gift you get to accept or decline. It's a sentence you're already serving. You are, whether you like it or not, condemned to choose. That word isn't an exaggeration. Condemned, because real freedom doesn't feel like the light, breezy thing it's advertised as. Real freedom feels heavy. It means there's no script to fall back on, no authority who can be blamed when things go wrong, no destiny absorbing the consequences of your decisions. Every choice is yours, entirely yours, and so is everything that follows from it. That's not liberating in the way people imagine before they actually taste it. It's suffocating, at first, because it means there's nowhere left to hide. This is exactly why most people spend their whole lives quietly fleeing from their own freedom. They build routines so rigid they never have to make a real decision again. They adopt other people's opinions wholesale so they never have to sit with the discomfort of forming their own. They fill every open hour with noise, distraction, obligation, anything to avoid the terrifying silence where a real choice might have to be made. It looks like structure, it looks like discipline, but underneath it, very often, it's avoidance wearing a productive costume. But here's what almost no one tells you. The weight of that freedom is also the only proof that your life actually belongs to you. A puppet doesn't feel the burden of choice, because a puppet doesn't choose anything. The very fact that this responsibility feels crushing at times is evidence that it's real, that it's yours, that nobody can take it from you even if you tried to give it away. Every time you outsource a decision to someone else's expectations just to feel lighter, you're not escaping the weight. You're just handing over the one thing that was ever truly yours to carry. So carry it anyway. Choose, even when it's uncertain. Choose, even when there's no guarantee, no map, no promise that you're right. That discomfort you feel before a real decision isn't a warning sign to retreat. It's the exact sensation of freedom doing what it was always going to do. The weight never goes away. You just get strong enough to carry it. There is no finish line waiting for you at the end of this. No moment where you arrive, fully formed, and finally get to rest in the identity you've been chasing. That's the fantasy most people are secretly waiting for. Some future version of themselves who has it all figured out, stable, complete, done. But that person doesn't exist, and they never will, because the self isn't a destination. It's a process that never actually stops moving. Think about everything that's been said so far. The mask built by other people had to be torn down. The meaning had to be built from nothing, because none was given. The pain had to be walked through, not avoided. The crowd had to be left behind long enough to hear your own voice. The weight of choosing had to be carried every single day, without flinching. Notice that none of these are events. None of them happen once, and then you're finished. They're not boxes to check. They're actions you keep repeating, choice after choice, day after day, for the rest of your life. This is the part that disappoints people who wanted a shortcut. They wanted to find themselves the way you find a lost object. Search long enough, and eventually there it is, waiting exactly where it's always been. But that's not how this works, and it never was. There is no hidden version of you sitting somewhere fully assembled, waiting patiently to be discovered. There is only the raw material, and the tools, and the choice, made over and over, to keep building. This is actually the most freeing realization available to you. You are never finished, which means you are never trapped either. Whatever mistakes you've made, whatever weak choices, whatever versions of yourself you're not proud of, none of it is permanent, because nothing about you was ever fixed to begin with. The self is not a sculpture you carve once and then display. It's a fire you have to keep feeding every day, or it starts to go out. So stop waiting for the day you'll finally arrive. Stop treating self-discovery like a task with an ending. Every day you avoid a hard truth, you unbuild a little of who you could be. Every day you choose honesty, discomfort, solitude, and responsibility over comfort and performance, you build a little more. There is no permanent version of you waiting at the end of this road, because the road never ends. You don't become yourself once. You become yourself again, every single day, for the rest of your life.